Good morning, students. Today, I'm going to discuss about the topic called exception handling. Before I go to start the topic, if you have any doubts for the first 5 minutes, I would like to discuss or I would try to clarify those doubts. If you have any doubts regarding the previous class, you can post it in chat. So for the first 5 minutes, I'll take your doubts. Yesterday we discussed about strings, and in the previous classes you learnt about different data structures like lists, tuples, dictionaries, and you have already learnt about functions also. And if you have any doubts, you can post it in the chat. I try to answer. Have you heard about the word exception earlier in your previous classes, either in C language or Java language? What is an exception? Okay. Somebody are asking about explanation of functions. Okay. What is the doubt that you have in functions? Can you tell me? What do you have doubt in functions? How to define a function? Okay. Here, the syntax is different from the either C language or Java language. To define any function, first I'll show you this. Are you able to see the notepad? Just now I have opened the notepad. Yeah. For any function in Python, it starts with def statement. It indicates that we are going to create a function in Python. Now, here I want to add two numbers. For that, I am writing one name of the function as addition. And since it is a function, you need to specify that by using these braces. And each and every function definition will terminate with this statement, colon statement. And after that, we need to follow the indentation. So indentation is by default 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what are the statements that are part of this function definition? We have to specify all these things. Now, if we want, we can declare the two variables here, a equal to 10 and b equal to 20. Return a plus b. That's it. And this is the definition of the function. All of them are following the same indentation. Now from this, you can write the like, if you compare this one with your C language program, this is the function definition that you can write before the main or after the main. After that, you need to write the main function. Similar to that, in Java, in Python, this is the function definition. Each and every function will start with def statement, the name of the function. And if you want to pass any parameter, suppose if I want to take two parameters, a comma b, suppose a comma b. Now there is no need to declare these two variables, right? Why? Because in the main function, suppose this is the function definition. In Python, if you want to call two things, I'll take x equal to int of input function. Look at this. By using the input function, I'm taking one value, and that value by default string, it is converted into the int, and that value is stored in x. Similarly, I'm taking the one more value from the keyboard and I am storing into this variable y. Here I call that function addition of x comma y. That's it. Once you are calling this function, the control goes to this statement and the function body will be executed and it will be displaying the output. This is the simple way to declare the functions, right? There are different types of functions like lambda functions also you can use. And if you want, I'll take a separate session on functions. But for the time being today, we need to discuss about one topic called exception handling. This one. Now, I think you might have heard if you have done with Java programming. Okay. Somebody are asking lists, how it will be taken and it will be stored in the list. Okay. So for the first question, what is the function that we are using to take any input from the keyboard? Input function. By default, it is a string. Now, I'll be using the statement like this. Once again, okay, I try to do this. Look at this. Here, I am going to tell you how to add elements which are taken as input from the user, and those elements need to be added to the list, right? Now look at this. I'm using the one for loop for I in range of 5. That means I'm repeating the for loop for 5 times. Now here what I am doing is, every time I want to take the input from the keyboard, for that I am using the input function, right? That input function I am storing in the variable x. That means, suppose I am taking one as one input string that will be stored into the variable x. Now I want to add this x to the list. First, I need to create a list like this. My list. I'm creating a list like this. And for that, you have one method called as append method. My list dot append of x. If you observe, I am following the indentation for these two statements, right? And that means these two statements are there in the for loop. Now I am repeating the for loop 5 times. Each time I am taking a value from the keyboard by using the input function, and that I am storing into the x. Now what I am doing, that x I am adding it to the list. Uh, Initially the list is empty. For to that list, I am appending the value that we are taking from the keyboard. This is the way you need to take your own values into the list. Today I am going to discuss about sets. Okay, there you can get the clarity. Here in all those four data structures, either sets, tuples, dictionaries or lists, for any of them you need to take the input, and these are the different methods will vary. For list it is the append method. For tuples it is the insert method. For dictionaries it is the insert method. For lists it is the append method. And for tuples you can use the values. Instead of this you can use the add method for the sets. Okay, so let me start with today's session. I'll give you the mail ID, and if you have any doubts you can post your doubts to my mail ID. I'll be responding to that your questions. Okay, now I'm going to start with the exception handling. And can you guess why I have given this image? If you have observed this, all these are apples, and one of the apple is different from the other apple. Suppose, yes, odd one. Exception is one such kind of thing. It is different from the normal errors. I think even though if you have not heard about the exception word, you might have heard about the error. Errors are the most common things that will be occurred in the programming language. So before I can go into the exception handling, let me show you one small C program. Uh, yeah, look at this. This is the one simple C program. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, this is one simple C program. Suppose if you compile this program, will you get any errors? Can anybody identify what is the error present here in this program? So this is the simple program. Yes, semicolon is missing here. Here in the declaration part, this is missing, and even in the print statement also, the semicolon is missing. That means you are getting the errors at the time of the compilation of the program. If you are getting those errors, these kind of errors are called as a syntax errors. Syntax errors means those are wrong according to the grammar of the programming language. These can be rectified by modifying your program by following the syntax of the programming language, and most of the times the syntax errors will be getting at the time of compilation of the program. So this is one such kind of example. And if you see this program is syntactically correct, right? This time if you run this program you won't get any errors. Now I'll show you one more program similar to this. uh, Look at this. I am declaring the two variables int a and b. I am asking you to enter two numbers. Now for this I am using the scanf statement to take the numbers. I am declaring the one more variable, float type of variable, float c. Now what I am doing is I am defining the float c value as c equal to a by b. Now I am printing the value of c. Printf value of c is percentage f comma c. Now this is the simple program. What I am doing is I am declaring the three variables, and for the first two variables I am taking two values as inputs, and I am performing the division operation, and I am printing the value of c. Now can you identify, yeah, can you identify any error in this program? Now I request all of you, please uh, stop your videos. You have to stop your video mode. Just you see, you mute your audio and you close your video. Look at this. This program, is it having any errors? No. That means this program is not having any syntax errors. If you compile this program, you won't get any errors. Now, suppose if I am running the program, here if I am taking the value of A as 10 and B as 5. Now, if you run this program, is this program will be successfully run or not? Successfully run means it has to execute all the statements in the program and it has to provide the output and the program has to terminate properly. Properly means you have to starting from the first instruction and you have to execute all the instructions and the program has to terminate smoothly. That is the meaning of perfect execution. Now, if I am taking the value of A as 5 and B as 2, we are going to get the value of C as 2. A equal to 10, B equal to 5, then value of C equal to 2. Now there are no syntax errors. But second time if I am running this program, by this time I am taking the value of A as 10 and the B value instead of 5, this time I want to take as 0. That means at the time of the compilation of the program, you won't get any errors. But during the execution of the program, depending upon the values of A and B that you are taking as input, you will be getting an error here, 10 by 0. These kinds of errors are called exceptions. Previous errors, those are called as a normal syntax errors, and these are called as uh, errors, exceptions. Exceptions means the errors that you are getting at runtime, and it is not that much easy to handle how you have handled the syntax errors, right? Here the problem with the exceptions are whenever the exception is occurred at a particular instruction, at a particular statement, the remaining part of the program will not be executed. There itself the program will be terminated abruptly. I repeat, syntax errors, whenever you are rectifying that, then you can rectify those errors. But coming to the runtime errors, because of the runtime errors, what will happen here is the program will be terminated abruptly. That means here you are getting an error. After this, the program won't continue with the smooth execution with the remaining statements. Here the program will be terminated without executing the remaining instructions. These errors are called as exceptions. In C language, there is no mechanism to handle these exceptions, but fortunately in Java language, and there is one mechanism called exception handling mechanism to handle these exceptions. We are going to discuss that exception handling in today's class. That exceptions we are going to discuss in Python. So before that, here what I have given you is, I have shown you what are the different kinds of errors that you are going to get while executing the programs. And one is syntax errors that you are getting because of the any syntax in the program. But second program which I have shown you, that is syntactically correct, but depending upon the values that you are giving at runtime, you are getting the errors. Those are called as exceptions. I can simply define an exception as a runtime error. You won't get at the time of compilation, but you will be getting at the time of execution of the program. If you are getting the errors at the compile time, it will be easy to handle. But if you are getting the errors at runtime, it is difficult to handle those exceptions. Right? Now I'm going to show you what are all the different kinds of exceptions that you are going to get in Python, as well as how to handle those exceptions. I told you there are the errors. There are the two types of errors. What is the first one? First type of errors are called as a syntax errors. Those syntax errors are also called as a parsing errors. Now, when do you get the parsing error? In C language, there are you will be getting these exceptions at the time of compilation, but in Python there is no compiler. So what it will be doing is, at the time of the parsing of your program, you are going to get these kind of errors. And when do you get the syntax errors in Python? When a Python parser is unable to understand a line of code. I'll show you one small example, the example of syntax error here. Look at this. Here the statement is like this. The first statement, if you see, while true, print hello world. This is the only one statement. You are executing this statement. At the time of the execution, you are getting an error and it is showing you the invalid syntax. Can you guess? Can you guess what is this error? Why did you get this error? So somebody are asking about end of file EOF error. EOF stands for end of file. While true, first one is the while statement, next one is the condition. The condition that is specified as always true. Though you are getting, though the statement, these two statements are correct, you are getting an error. The reason is the syntax of the loops in Python, each and every for loop or while loop will be terminated with a colon symbol. While true, after true, you should have the colon symbol, then only you have to use the print statement. So that statement is, that colon symbol is missing here. That is the reason that you are getting an error. These type of errors, those are incorrect according to the syntax. Those are called as a syntax errors. And this is the one example of syntax error. You see that another type of error is called as an exception. These are the things that we are going to discuss in today's class. Exception means runtime error. Look at this. Errors detected during the execution. Execution or runtime, both are same. Previous case, we are getting exceptions. We are getting the errors because of the syntax at the time of the compilation. And here we are getting the errors at the time of the execution. The errors that you are getting at the time of the execution of the program, those are called as a exceptions. I'll show you the errors, such kind of exceptions. See the first example, 10 into 1 by 0. If you see that, A into B by C, this is valid statement according to the syntax. But depending upon the value of C, here the C is 0, because of that you are getting an exception. Because of that you are getting an exception. Syntactically the statement is correct. Instead of 0, if you are having 2, here you won't get this kind of error here. But this is, you are getting the error because of the division by 0, and this is generating one kind of exception called zero division error, that is represented in the red color. This is the exception name. Each and every exception in Python is described in the form of a class, zero division error, right? And you see the another statement, 4 plus spam into the 3. Spam is a variable. Now, whenever you are going to use any kind of the variable, first of all, you have to declare the variable before you use that. But here I have not specified the declaration of the spam variable. That is the reason it is generating an exception called name error, right? And you see the another third example, 2 plus 2. Here, if you observe, the first one is 2 in the form of a string and the second one is 2 in the form of a integer value. If both are 2's, that means this is an integer, if this is an integer, then you won't get any error. And this is a string, and if this is also a string, string concatenation will be done. In that case also you won't get any error. The error that you are getting here, you cannot add one string to the one integer, right? That is the reason you are getting this error. This kind of errors are called as a type error. Are you understanding? These are the some small examples of exceptions. So here, what is the difference between these three examples and the previous example is, all these three statements are correct according to the syntax. These three statements are correct according to the syntax. But these are, you are getting the errors at the runtime because of the some logic of your program. Here, instead of 0, if you have used any other number, then you won't get any error here. And this statement, if you have declared the spam variable before using this statement, and this statement will not be leading to any kind of exception. And 2, that means if you are converting this string into the integer, or this integer can be converted into the string, if you are adding those two, then also you won't get any errors. That means all these errors you are getting not because of the syntax, we are getting because of the logic of the program, and these are called as exceptions. Now, did you get idea about what is an exception? Simply, an exception is an error that will be occurred at the runtime. And another kind of errors are called as the syntax errors. Those errors will be occurred only because of the syntactical, there is a problem according to the syntax of the programming language. Now what we need to do, handling the syntax errors is easy. Again, once you go back to the program and modify that program according to the syntax, then you'll be getting an error. You will be rectifying those errors. But coming to exceptions, even if you are running the same program many number of times, the exceptions, you cannot rectify those exceptions, right? Here, there are some mechanism is there to handle those exceptions, right? The exceptions will be handled like this. First, we'll see what is an exception. I've already told you, exception is abnormal condition that will be executed only at the runtime. And because of the exception, what will happen? The program will be terminated abruptly. Are you following? Exception is an abnormal condition that will be occurred at a runtime. Because of the exception, what is happening? The program will be terminated in the middle without completely executing the program. So that is the statement I have specified here. Whenever an exception occurs, the program halts its execution and the further code will not be executed. Now, I'll be listing out what are all the different types of common exceptions. One of such exception is zero division error. Previously, I have shown you, if you are dividing any number by 0, then you will be getting this exception. That exception is called as a zero division exception. Another exception is called as a name error. In the previous case, when did you get the name error? If you are using any kind of variable without declaring that, then you are getting an exception. That type of exception is called as a name error. And in the previous case, spam is not declared, but you have used that. Thus is an example of name error. Next one is indentation error. What is the meaning of indentation? Whenever you are writing any if statements or loops, all the statements that are part of that if statement or loops should follow the indentation. If you are not following the indentation, then you will be getting another kind of exception called indentation error. And IO error. What is the meaning of IO? IO stands for input output. If we are performing the operations while taking the input from the user and displaying the output onto the screen, during performing the operations, if any of the operations fails because of some reasons, then you will be getting IO error. IO errors generally mostly dealing with whenever we are working with some files. Suppose, I think you might have studied file concepts in C language. Whenever you are going to open a file, what you need to do? You have to use the fopen function. In the fopen function, you need to specify the name of the file as well as the mode. What is the purpose of opening the file? Suppose I'm writing like this, file pointer f1 equal to fopen some abc.txt comma r. That means I am trying to open a file called abc.txt in the read mode. Suppose if this file is not there, abc.txt file is not there, in that case, you will be getting such kind of error, IO error. That means you are trying to open a file which is not existing. Then you will be getting such kind of errors called IO errors. Somebody are asking like, when do we get the runtime error? Runtime error means if you are executing the program, and at the suppose if you take the C language program, at the time of the compilation of the program, you won't get any errors. It is showing that 0 errors and 0 warnings. But if you are running the program and after executing some statements, and if it is generating an error, then those are called as a runtime errors. The runtime errors you will be getting only after execution of the program, in the middle of the program. Previously I have shown you C equal to A by B. If I am giving the correct values of A and B like 10 and 5, in that case, during the runtime, the same statement will not generate any error. Now, the next time I am running the same program, this time I am giving the value of A as 10 and B as 0. This time you are getting an error. That is called as a runtime error. Same statement sometimes may generate an error, sometimes may not generate an error based upon the values of the inputs. And all these errors you are getting only at the time of execution of the program. That is called as a runtime error. I hope it is clear, right? EOF error. EOF error means end of file error. Suppose, uh, look at this. Here you want to read some content from a file. Suppose you are opening a file in read mode and that file consisting of 10 lines. How do you perform the read operation? First, you will be reading the first line. Next time, you will be reading the second line, third line, fourth line. Now you have reached to the 10th line. Now again, you perform the read operation. Which one will be read? 10th line will be read. After that, again, if you perform the read operation, you have to read the 11th line. But is there 11th line is there in your file? There are only 10 lines of text is there in your file. You can read a maximum of 10 lines of text, but if you try to read the content beyond the contents of the file, then you will be getting the end of file. If the file consisting of 10 lines and if you try to read the 11th line, then you will be getting the end of file error. There is no 11th line, but still you are trying to read that. In that case, you will be getting the end of file error. These are all the some of the predefined exceptions that are there in the Python programming language. All the exceptions are implemented in the form of a classes, and these are the some of the predefined exceptions in Python. Now I'm going to show you one small code or one small program. There I am writing the same program without handling any exceptions. See this, the heading is problem without handling exceptions. You observe this code, simple code. What I am doing, I am taking the A value and B value from the user. Input is the function which is used to take an input from the keyboard. Suppose input of enter A, that means you'll be prompting with A, enter A. Suppose you have given the value as 10, right? Now, after that, I'll show you this program. I'm trying to open the Jupyter notebook. I'll show you this program execution so that you can understand. In the meanwhile, I'll explain the program. You are taking the two numbers A and B and you are performing the division operation. You are simply printing the A by B and this one. Suppose, as I told you previously, if there is any error occurred at a particular statement, what will happen? The program terminate there itself and you won't, the further statements will not be executed. How many statements are there in this program? 1, 2, 3, 4. Other one is 5. Now, if it is properly executing, then all the 5 statements will be executed. Suppose if you are getting any kind of exception, suppose in the third line, if you get exception, after that, the remaining statement won't be executed. That means fourth statement and fifth statement won't be executed here. I'll show you with an example. Yeah. Okay, semicolon is not required here. Look at this. I'm removing the semicolon. Look at this. See this code. A, I am taking the value of A and I am taking the value of B, and C equal to A by B. I am dividing this one. I'll execute this program. Somebody are asking, you can use any of the platform. I feel comfortable with Jupyter Notebook. Why? Because I have installed in my system, and most of the times I use Jupyter Notebook for executing of my Python programs. You can take any of your program. Please explain fourth line. What is the fourth line here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This is simply to follow the syntax of the C language kind of syntax. Instead of this, you can also write like this. Print A by B. See here. The output will be displayed like this. A by B equal to some value. What is that value? Since you want to display that as integer, percentage D I am using like in C language, and this percentage D corresponds to value present in the variable C. Look at this. So for that I am using the percentage C here. Okay. So this statement is also same as I'm writing in comment lines. Print C. That's it. Or we can write like this. Print A by B equal to I want to display the output as A by B equal to, and the value of C I am printing here. Okay. See this? Whenever I am executing the program, input function to take the input, that is the reason enter A. This is the prompt what you have given within this. It is giving A, and I'm taking the value of 10. Next, I'm pressing enter. It is asking for another number. I'm taking the value as 2. I'm pressing enter here. Look at this. After these two statements, the third statement that is executed is C equal to A by B. Next, the fourth statement, A by B equal to percentage D. This is the output of the fourth statement. Now, after this statement is executed as it is. That is the reason you are getting the output. Observe this program clearly. The first two statements is taking the input. The third statement is executed to perform the division operation. And since there is no exception or error in these statements, the remaining two statements are executed clearly. This statement and this statement are executed properly. That is the reason you are getting the output of these two. Now, for the same program, again I am executing. This time I am taking the value of A as 10 and B as 0. Now what will happen? This third statement will causes exception. Once the exception is raised, what will happen? The program terminates here itself. The remaining two statements won't be executed. Look at this. Did you get any output like see A by B equal to something like in the previous case? Did you get any output hi I am other part of the program here? No. Why? Because here you are getting an exception here, and once the exception is occurred, what will happen? The program has terminated and the remaining part of the program is not executed. That is the reason though you have the print statement here and here, you did not get the any output. Now here it is showing that 0 division error. That means I already told you Python is having the inbuilt mechanism to handle the exceptions. Python is having the inbuilt mechanism to handle such kind of exceptions. Now what it is doing, once the error is exception is occurred, the exceptions will be thrown. The exception will be thrown. Once exception is thrown, the Python will be handling that exceptions, and it is simply displaying a message like 0 division error you got at that particular statement. See this, the arrow is there at the fourth line, and Python is handling that exception and you are displaying that. Are you understanding? Now, coming to this, here we are not handling any exception. Who is handling that exception? Python is automatically handling that exception. That is the reason it is simply displaying the message like this. This is the same message that we got in the Jupyter notebook. Now, if we give C equal to A by B in line 6. Again, I go to the Jupyter notebook, line 6. It is not A by B statement. Look at this. This is specified in the double quotes. Why? Because I want to get the output in the double quotes like this. Look at this. Once again, I'll run the program. 10 to see this one. This is the 6th line. To get the output A by B equal to. That is the reason here I have specified the A by B within the double quotes. That is the reason I have specified A by B equal to. It is not the division once again like you have done for the C. Okay. Did you understand? Here, though exception is occurred, we are not handling that exception, then Python is handling that exception, right? Now, I don't want the Python to handle the exception according to its wish. I want to handle the exception according to my requirement. Suppose, I'll tell you one small example. Suppose one of your friend is another doubt. If we give the line 4 after the print statements, can you show me the code? How you are asking? I am unable to get you. C equal to A by B. If you give that in 6th line or 4th line, no issue. You can write the program in the chat box, and you can show me. I'll try to rectify that. You show me that program in chat box. In the meanwhile, I'll continue the program. Okay. Here we are not letting you the Python to handle the exceptions. You want to handle your own exception. Look at this. Suppose you have asked your friend to get me a t-shirt for me. You are simply asking your friend to simply get a t-shirt for me. Now what he will be doing is he will be selecting a t-shirt of his choice, but whether the t-shirt will be liked by you or not. If something is given to somebody, they will be doing according to their wish. But if you want to do according to your requirement, then it is your responsibility to handle that exception. That is the reason I would like to handle the exception here. Somebody are asking to explain me the 4th line. In this or Jupyter notebook, here 4th line. Look at this. Look at this. If you are writing anything within the double quotes, look at this. If you are writing anything within the double quotes, that output will be printed as it is. Look at this. To display the output here as it is, A by B equal to I am writing here. And in the after A by B, you want to display the some value. If you see like C programming, if you want to display any kind of integer value, what is the corresponding format specifier you will be using? %d. So here the %d, that means in this place you want to display some value. Which value you are going to display? The value present in the variable C. So this is the variable C. The value that is present in the variable C will be specified by using the this percentage symbol, %C. Did you understand the 4th line? To display the output A by B equal to like this, I have specified this within the double quotes. And A by B value I want to print, that value is represented in the form of %d. That percentage D corresponds to which value? The value that is present in the variable C. That is the reason I am using the percentage C. That's it. See that whatever the code that you have given here, I am copying the same program into the Jupyter notebook. Look at this. Sorry, copy, paste. Is it the code that you are asking me? Look at this. Now here what you are doing, look at this. You are going to display A by B equal to percentage D, percentage C. What is C here? Have you declared any variable C before you use that? In this case, what do you get? Previously, we got name error. You are going to use a variable without declaring that. Here, if you omit these two statements, observe this. If you omit these two statements, by this time A and B are having some values. And from the A and B values, you are taking the value of C so that you'll be printing the value of C. But here, you are printing only the value of C, which you have not assigned any value. I think you got this. Okay. Now, in the previous case, we have not handled any exception here. Python is handling that exception. But if you want to handle your exception on you according to your requirement, then there is some mechanism in Python that can be done by using these two statements. One is try, another one is except. Try is the one which is here you won't get any kinds of braces, but these are the some set of statements that comes under the try. What statements will be kept under the try block is the statements there is the chance of getting any kind of exceptions. Those set of statements will be placed in the try block. Now, once any exception is occurred in any of these statements that were kept under try, if there is any exception is occurred, immediately the control goes out of the try block and it goes to the except block. Except block is the one how to handle that exception. That means you have to write the code here how you want to handle that exception. I'll be showing you with the help of an example, but for the time being from this slide what you need to understand is if you want to handle exceptions, you have to use these two blocks. One is try block, another one is except block. The purpose of the try block is to simply you will be specifying the some set of statements. If any of those statements within the try block in that if exception is occurred, the try block will be throwing that exception. That is the purpose of try block. And once the exception is thrown, what the except block will be doing, it will be taking those exceptions and it will be handling that exceptions. The handling of exceptions code you have to write here, right? Look at this. This is the syntax. This is the try block, try followed by the colon, and here you need to follow the indentation. All the statements that are part of the try block will be written here. Next, except. What is the purpose of except block? If you want to handle that exception, the corresponding exception name you have to specify. In the previous case, we got the different kind of exceptions. Suppose if you got zero division exception, you want to handle the zero division exception. How you want to handle that zero division exception will be written the code here. Suppose if you got name error in this try block, and that name error if you want to handle here, how do you want to handle the name exception will be specified in this here. Are you getting? I repeat, try and except blocks are used to handle that exception. The try block consists of some set of statements where there is a chance of getting an exception. Once the exception is occurred, immediately the try block, the control goes to the exception. Suppose if the exception one is zero division exception. Now you want to handle the zero division exception. Then the corresponding code will be written here. this code corresponds to how to handle the zero division exception. Suppose this block of code may generate name error. Now if you want to handle the name error, the corresponding code you can write here like this. You can write the try and accept blocks to handle the exceptions. Look at this. I'll show you with an example. This is another statement. In addition to the previous one, you have else block. When do you use the else block? Suppose there are 5 statements are there in the try block. The 5 statements, from those 5 statements, there is a chance of getting the two kinds of exceptions. There is a chance of getting the two kinds of exceptions. For handling the two kinds of exceptions, you have written the code in the except block. Right? Now, unfortunately, you got the third kind of exception, which you have not specified any exception block here. In that case, the control goes to the else block. That means when the control goes to the else block is, look at this. If this exception is not matching with the any of these except blocks, then the control goes to the else block. Right? I'll show you with an example so that you can understand. Look at the statement. First try block of code you are writing, and if you have any errors in this block of code, the corresponding control will be go to the except block. Right? Now, if this exception is not matching with the any of these except block, then the control goes to the else part. See this? This code will be executed if no except block is executed. Are you understanding? The code that is present under else statement will be executed only if this exception raised in the try block is not matching with the any of the exceptions in the except blocks. I'll show you with the help of an example. Look at this. This is similar to the previous program only. I'm taking the values of A and B, performing the division operation. Look at this. If I am taking the value of A as 10 and B equal to 2, what will happen? The print statement will be executed. Whether the control will go to the except block? No. Whether the control will go to the else block? If any of the except block is not executed, else block will be executed. Look at this. Now see this. Try to understand. When the else block will be executed, if any of the except block is not executed, then else block will be executed. Now 10 and 2, the print statement is executed. If the print statement is executed, whether the control will go to the except block? No. If the control is not going to the except block, whether the else block will be executed or not? This will be executed. That is the reason you are getting the output like this. Did you understand this program, or do you want more clarity? Now, suppose if I am giving the value of A as 10, if I am giving the value of B as 0, will you get this print statement output? No, this print statement output you won't get. Why? Because here itself you got exception. Once you got the exception, the control directly goes to the except block. Here, what is the answer you will be getting? Can't divide by 0. Right? Now, will you get the output of this? No. If B equal to 0, you won't get the else block. Why? Because the control directly goes to the exception block, and once it is executed, else block won't be executed. If it is 10 and 0, the output will be only can't divide by 0. Even the print statement output won't be printed, and the statement will not be printed. Is it clear? Now, declaring the multiple exceptions. The meaning of this one is, for all the different kind of exceptions you want to handle at once. Look at this. Except block, in the previous case, we have seen one exception for one except block, another exception for another except block. Here, if you want to specify the multiple exceptions with only one except block, right? If this exception is matching with any one of these exceptions, then this block of code will be executed. That means for all the different kind of exceptions, you want to handle only one type of way. In that case, you can write this kind of code. Even though you are getting the arithmetic exception, even though you are getting the name exception, even you are getting the IO exception, for all the different kinds of exceptions you want to handle in a similar fashion, the same fashion, then you can write the exceptions here. And if this exceptions that is not matching with the any of these exceptions that is specified here, then directly the control goes to the else block. See the error here. Look at this, a equal to 10 by 0. Here you are getting an exception. Here you are specifying the more than one exception. Even if you are getting the arithmetic exception, or even you are getting the standard exception, or even if you are getting any other kind of exception, you want to simply specify the arithmetic exception only, right? Even though if this exception is not matching with the any of these statements, the control goes to the else block. Is it clear? So multiple exceptions can be declared like this. And finally block. These three statements we have seen. If you observe clearly, the flow will be like this. I repeat, there some set of statements will be there under try block. If any of those statements causes any exception, the control will be going to the except block. If this exception is not matching with the any of this except block, then the control will be going to the else block. These are the things that we have seen. But there is one more statement called finally block. The finally block will be executed even though exception is occurred or not, if I want to handle those exceptions. Are you understanding? Suppose if you have files, if you have the files, how do you work with the files? First of all, you need to open with the file, perform read and write operations with the file. After that, you need to close the file. If you are not closing the file, what will happen? That file cannot be used by the somebody. Until and unless the file is not closed, the file cannot be used by the somebody. That means even the exception is raised or even the exception is not raised, if you want to execute some set of statements, those statements need to be executed compulsorily before the program terminates. Then those statements will be executed in the finally block. I repeat, the purpose of the finally block is used to completely, if you want to execute some set of statements, irrespective of the exception is raised or not, then those statements will be specified under finally block. Without using the finally block, can we write the print statement? Yes, we can write. Finally block, suppose I don't have any set of statements that need to be compulsorily be executed, though irrespective of the exception. In that case, finally block is not required. Are you understanding? Look at this. Suppose you are the only person at your home, right? Now you want to leave the home for some purpose. What you need to do, it is the responsibility of you to lock your home properly, right? Now if somebody are there at home, though you are locked or not, the people that are there at home will be look after your home. In that case, finally is not required. Finally block is the one which is used to execute some set of statement compulsorily. Those statements should be executed irrespective of the exception. That means even the exception occurred or not, those statements have to be executed. Only such type of statements will be written in the finally block. Look at this. Look at this. Here I am opening a file, right? After opening the file, you want to perform the write operation. After performing the write operation, you need to close the file. Here, which statement is compulsorily? Closing of the file is compulsory. That means even the file is opened, or even the file is, even if you are not performing the write operation also, you need to close the file. Once the file is opened, you need to close the file. right? These statements should be compulsorily be executed. That is the reason these kind of statements you are writing in the finally block. Are you understanding? So the some set of statement need to be executed compulsorily, irrespective of whether the exception is raised or not. Those statement will be occurred. Look at this. When do you get this error? Tell me. File closed and error. Here, why are you getting this one? You are trying to open a file. The name of the file is file.txt. If this file is not there, if the file is not there, can you able to open that file? No. If you are unable to open a file which is not existing, in that case, IO error will be occurred. Here I have not specified the IO error, but I'm simply specifying the except. And that is the reason you are getting an exception here. Here the exception you are getting, you are trying to open a file which is not existing. Now in all the cases, the Python itself raised the exceptions. Now we want to raise the exceptions manually depending upon my requirement. Are you understanding? In all the previous examples we have seen, the Python itself is raising an exception, but this time I want to raise the exceptions manually. In that case, I'll be using the one statement called raise. Look at this. You observe this statement, raise. Raise is used to raise the exception manually. In the previous cases, depending upon the values, depending upon the operations, the Python has raised the exceptions automatically. But this time, based upon my requirement conditions, based upon my conditions, I want to raise an exception. In that case, you have to use the raise statement. In the previous cases, depending upon the error, if it is division by 0, if the variable is not declared, in that cases, the Python understood those errors, then those errors were raised. And but here I am writing my own program. If the age is less than 18, I want to raise an error, but those type of things won't be detected by the Python. That is the reason, based upon my requirement conditions, I want to raise an error. If I want to raise an error manually, you have to use the raise statement. Once the exception is raised, what will happen? The control will go to the accept block. And which type of error is raised here? Value error. That is the reason the accept block is receiving the value error, and this is the code how to handle that value error. For the simplicity, simply handling of errors, we are writing simply print statement. But in the real-time scenario, you have to write some kind of code to how to handle with those kind of errors, right? And here what you need to observe is raise is used to raise an exception manually, and that exception should be handled by using the accept block. I'm entering 17. 17 is less than 18, right? The condition is true. That is the reason it goes to the if block and tries value error. The value error is raised, the control comes here and the output is printed like this. Another example. What is the difference between the previous one and this one? Previously, after performing the division operation only, you got that error, division by 0 error, that can be understood by the Python. That is the reason it is automatically raised. But this time, before performing the division operation, based upon the value of B, I want to raise an exception manually. I am not waiting till I perform the division operation. Once I am taking the values of A and B as inputs, first I am checking the value of B. If the value of B equal to 0, there itself I am raising an exception. The name of the exception is arithmetic error here, and I am displaying the handling the error simply by displaying the message as the value of B cannot be 0. Did you understand the second example? Here I am not getting the division by 0 error. before performing the division operation, checking that whether b equal to 0 or not. If b equal to 0, I am raising an error. This error could be anything. Raise arithmetic error. You can raise any kind of error, but you need to handle such the same error by using the except block. I hope you are able to understand this. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Shall I continue with the next one? Or do you have doubts in any of these examples? Okay, then I'll continue. This is all about exceptions. Now, uh, I would like to go to the another topic called sets. In the previous classes, we have we have gone through the different topics like lists, dictionaries, tuples. In all the cases, what you are doing, you are storing some data in the different format. Lists also you are used to store the data, sets also used to store the data, and dictionaries also used to store the data. Right? The purpose of all these data structures is to store the data, but all are having the certain limitations. Some of them can be accessed using the indexes, some of them can be modified, some of them can be ordered. Now, there is another similar kind of the data structure called as a set in Python. It is similar to your lists, it is similar to your tuples, but the way they are representing, the way they are accessed is different. If you have understood about those lists and all, then you can easily understand the sets also. Look at this. Set is unordered collection of items that are specified within the curly braces. If you see the list, all the elements in the list are ordered. Suppose if you are entering 5 elements in a particular order, if you print the elements, in the same order which you have entered will be displayed. Right? That is the meaning of ordering. The elements in the list are ordered. But coming to the set, the elements in the list set are not ordered. What kinds of braces that you are using for creation of the list? Rectangular braces, like you are using for matrices. But here you are using the curly braces, like we are using for main method in C language, not main method. Uh, what we function definition, curly braces, that kind of braces you are using. And here you cannot have the duplicate elements. That means, suppose I want to create one set 1 to 10. Again, if I am inserting one more number, again 7 is already present in the list set. Again, you cannot have the one same element. That means duplicates cannot be allowed in the set. Set is a mutable. What is the meaning of mutable? You can modify the contents, or you can modify the elements in the set. But coming to the tuples are immutable. Immutable means once the tuple is created, you cannot modify the tuples. But set can be done. And lists, I'm going to show you the differences among all the 4 after completion of this topic. Don't worry about that. Okay? But these are the features of the sets. No indexing. What is the meaning of this? You cannot access the elements of the set by using the indexing, unlike lists. Lists, 0 index will gives you the first element, -1 will gives you the last element. By performing the slice operations from starting index to the ending index, you can access the elements. But indexing is not possible in the sets. Now, I'll show you how to create a set. Look at this. I told you these are the curling braces. Whenever you want to create any set, you have to use the curling braces, and the set elements will be specified like this. Each and every element is separated with comma. A set can be created like this. And if you have remembered, And the same curling braces will also be used for one data structure among these four. Can you tell me what is the data structure? You have four data structures, right? Lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. Lists are used with the rectangle symbol, whereas tuples are used with these braces. Yes. Dictionaries also used to use the curly braces. And even if the dictionaries and sets are represented with the same braces, then how do you differentiate those two, whether it is a dictionary or whether it is a set? How do you distinguish these two? In both cases, you are using the same braces, curly braces. Yes. All the elements in the dictionary are represented with key value pairs. That is the reason, though you are using the same symbol for both sets and dictionaries, based upon by looking at the elements itself, you can tell it is a set or dictionary. This is one way of creating the sets. Another way is you can use one method called set method. By using the set method also, you can create a set like this. Look at this. Days equal to set. This is the set method. Since it is a method, you are using these braces, and within this you need to pass the iterator. Iterator means either it can be the list or it can be a tuple like this. Are you understanding? Set method, by using the set method also, you can pass one iterator. Iterator could be either list, iterator could be either a list, set, tuple, or dictionary. And set method is taking the one list as parameter, and entire elements of the list will be part of the set. This is the simple way to create the set. One is by using the, sir, we are using the input keyword for taking the input into sets. Can we use input? Instead of taking these numbers directly, you can use the input. But previously I told you, how do you add the elements into the set? By using the add method, right? I'll show you that. I'll show you that. By using the value, you are adding it to the set method by using the add function, so that you can add some elements into the set. Look at this example. I am creating a sets weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Can I include one more day like Monday here? There are 7 days. I want to use one more day, again Monday. Can I use this? No. The reason is you cannot have the duplicates in sets. You cannot have the duplicates in the sets. Look at this. I am declaring one set by using the curling braces. I am simply displaying the values or the elements of the set by using the print statement. Now I want to specify what is the type. What is the type of this set? Now if I want to access the individual elements by using the for loop for I in iterator, days is one iterator. What it will do, first I will be pointing to the one element in the iterator, next element in the iterator, next element in the iterator. Look at this. The output that you are going to get is like this. And observe the output and compare the program, compare with the program. Here, listen, here you have declared the one set days. Now immediately after that, what you are doing, we are simply printing the set. Days is set. Now what is the first one you have used here? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In a particular order you have created the days. But while printing the set, first Friday is displayed, Tuesday, Monday, Saturday. Is there any order for this? No. If you see the previous slide, the first statement in the sets, I told you, set is unordered collection of items. It is unordered collection of items. That means though you are having some elements in the set, the elements won't be printed in the order. This you need to identify here, print statement. Next one is type. What is the type of the days? Days is set type of value. The next one is by using the for loop, I am printing the individual elements, right? Now see this. By using this, I am printing the individual elements. First, I is pointing to the one element. I is pointing to the next element. Next, I will be pointing the next element until all the elements are finished. Each and every element is displayed like this. See here, the same program, if I want to take the input, first I have to create a set like this. I'll write suppose my set equal to, listen, see this. I'm creating a variable called as a my set, and I'm creating the empty set. Now what I'll be doing is input. I'm using the input function to take a value. Now I want to add my set dot add of x. Are you understanding? Now if I use this in for loop for I in range of 5, what I am doing, I am creating an empty set here. After that, I'm repeating the while loop for 5 times. Each time what I am doing, by following the indentation, I am taking the value of x, and that x is added to the my set. What you are doing, every time one value is added to the my set. After this, if you want to print, now I'm coming out of the for loop, print of my set. Whatever the values that you have taken through this input, those will be stored in the my set, and you are printing the my set. Like this, you can take the inputs of your choice into the set. Did you understood? This is the question you have asked. Okay. Okay, paste it. By default, it is taking the indentation. I am following the same indentation here. Okay. I'm executing this. Look at this. I'm creating an empty set. I'm taking the 5 strings. Why? Because I have repeated this. Each time I'm adding this one, and after that I'm printing this. And the order which I have given the inputs is different from the output. Okay. Okay. Uh, Already the set is there. Now I am going to add this. If you are using the duplicates, how many times you need to get? High you have to get 2 times. But did you get high here 2 times? It is not allowing the duplicates. Okay? Okay. Now, these are all the different kinds of operations that you can perform with the set. Add method, just now we have seen. Initially, we are taking the sets like this. And after that, I am adding two values by using the add method. By using the add method, you can add elements to the set. And update method. Can you tell me the difference between update method and add method? Add method is used to add only one element at a time. But if you want to add multiple elements at a time to the set, then you can use the update method. Months dot update of multiple elements, right? Like this, you can use the update method. Now, if you want to remove any element from the set, there are 3 methods are there. Look at this. Discard method is used to remove element from the set. Even remove method is also used to remove the element from the set. Again, pop method is also used. And the difference between the pop method and the previous method is the pop method will always use to remove the last element. By that time, what is the last element? And that element will be removed by the pop. But we do not know which element is the last element, right? That last element that is present in the list will be removed by using the pop. Look at this. You can specify the which element you want to discard by using the discard method. And remove method is also which element you want to remove. But pop, there is no need to specify the element. By default, what would be the last element? That element will be removed. But we do not know what is the last element. Why? Because it is unordered. Now see the difference between discard and remove methods. Did you understand? Suppose this remove method, I am creating a list, I am creating a set which consisting of some elements, and I want to remove an element called May. And if May element is not there in the set, if you use the remove method, it will generate an error. Are you understanding? The same discard method, if you use, if though that particular element is not there in that, it will not be generating any error. Both purpose is used to remove the element, but if that element which you are going to remove, if it is not there in the set, remove method will generate an error, whereas discard method won't generate any error. That is the only difference. Now, set operations you might have studied from schooling. What are the set operations? One is union operation. Inka? Union intersection, set difference. Look at this. I am taking the days 1 is one set and days 2 is another set. If you want to perform the union you can use this symbol. This is called as a pipe symbol. If you remember, logical or you are performing logical or pipe symbol that will be there on the top of the enter button in your keyboard. One pipe symbol you can use days 1 union days 2. That is one way. Another way is you can directly use the union method. First set dot union second set name. Either of these two you can use. What is the output that you'll get after combining these two? What are all the elements are there that you will be getting this? Suppose if one of them is existing in both the cases. See here in the second list Wednesday is not there. Suppose I have included Wednesday in the days 2 set. Though you are combining, Wednesday will be repeated only once. Why? Because you won't have duplicates. Are you understanding? You won't contain any duplicate here. Did you understand the union? Union operation will be performed by using the either pipe symbol or union method. And the values that you are going to get is no duplicates. Though you are having the common elements in these two, if you perform the union operation, sets won't contain any duplicates. See the intersection. The symbol you are using is ampersand symbol. And see this one. These two, this David Martin and David Martin, are common in both the sets. Now intersection means you'll be getting this like you have seen in your mathematics. Difference. What is the meaning of difference? Should be there in this one and should not be there here. What do you get here? Monday is present in both the cases, so Monday you won't get. Tuesday you are having in both the cases, you won't get here. Present here and should not present here. Wednesday is present here and not there in the days 2, so you are getting the Wednesday. And Thursday is present here and not there here. You'll be getting Thursday. You won't get Sunday here. Why? Because should be there in the first one and should not be there in the second one. So only these two are matching. So the symbol that you are using is minus symbol. You can also use the method called as difference method. Okay. Comparison. Look at this. The comparison method is less than, greater than, or greater than the symbols too. By using these symbols, what you can check? You can check whether that is subset or superset or equivalent. Remember this. By using the set comparison method, you can check whether it is the subset or superset or equivalent to the other set. See the example. Here we have 3 sets. What is the first statement it is given? Days 1 is greater than days 2. What is days 1? Here it is not the count here. Observe here. The days 1 have 4 and days 2 is having 2. The first one is greater than second one. It is not the case. You see the statement. We are checking whether the set is subset or superset or equivalent. Now when days 1 and days 2, if days 1 is superset, then only greater than symbol will return true. See here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Is it not superset of the Monday and Tuesday? So that is the reason this will gives you the true value. Next one, see this. Days 1 is less than the days 2. Now less than means which one should be the superset? Days 2 should be the superset. But days 2 is the subset. That is the reason here you are getting the false. Are you understanding? Here we should not think in terms of the number of elements. We have to see whether it is a superset or subset. If it is greater than type should be the superset and the less than type should be the subset. Days 1, see the second statement. Days 1 is less than the days 2. That means days 1 should be subset of days 2. Is the days 1 is subset of days 2? No, days 1 is the superset. That is the reason it is false. In this case, days 1 greater than means it is the superset. Days 1 is superset of days 2. That is the reason here it will true. This one will false. What about this? Days 2 equal to days 3. Are both are same? No. So that is the reason it is giving you false. These are the set comparison operations. What are the operations that we have seen? One is union operation, second one is intersection, third one is difference, fourth one is comparison. Yeah, it can be for the numbers also, but we are talking about only the superset and subset. Suppose in the set 1, I have taken 1 to 10, right? Now in the second case, I am taking the 11, 12, 13, 14. Is first one is subset of the second one, there is no matching at all. In that case, you will be getting false only. It could be anything. Now see the another type of set called as a frozen set. See the statement. Frozen set is immutable form of normal set. Immutable form of the normal set. What is the meaning of mutable? Mutable means which can be modified. Which can be modified. You can add the elements, you can delete the elements. That is the meaning of mutability. Sets are mutable. That means you can add the elements and you can delete the elements by using the remove method or discard method or pop method also. But you can declare one set which you cannot perform those operations like insertion or deletion. And in that case, you can go with the frozen sets. Those are immutable form of normal sets. What is the meaning of this? Add or remove operations cannot be performed. The frozen, how do you create the frozen set? Previously, how we have created the set directly by using the curling braces, and the second one is by using the set method. Similarly, frozen set can be created by using the frozen set method. Look at this. I am using the one method called as frozen set, and for this I am passing some numbers. So previously you have asked whether the sets can be created for the numbers or not. You can create with numbers also, right? Here what you are doing, you are creating by using the set method, not by using the frozen set, but it is not set method. Frozen set means you cannot perform the add operation. Look at this. What you are doing, simply you have created the one frozen set in the first statement. In the second statement, you are printing what type of data type it is, what type of set it is. In the third statement, you are simply displaying the print statement. Next, we are displaying the elements of the frozen set by using the for loop. Observe this. We are printing the elements of the frozen set by using the for loop. After that, we are adding the element. We are adding the element. See the output. See the previous one. First one you are printing is type of the set. What is the type of the set? It is the frozen set. Second case, what you are doing? We are displaying the elements. Now all the elements are displayed here by using the for loop. First element, next element, third, fourth, fifth. Next, after displaying the elements, what you have done? We are adding the elements. That means if you are trying to add the elements to the frozen set, what it will do? It will generate an error. Why? Because frozen sets are immutable. So that is the reason we are getting an error. And it gives an error since we can change the content of the frozen set after creating. You are trying to change the contents of the frozen set. That is the reason you are getting an error. Frozen set has no method called add. Is it clear? So this is all about sets. We have seen in the sets how to create a set, how to add the elements to the set, and how to delete the elements from the set, and how to display the sets by using the for loop. What are the operations that can be performed on the sets like union, intersection, difference, and comparison operations. And we have seen the frozen set, which is immutable form of the normal set. You cannot add or delete the elements from the set. This is all about sets. Now I'll show you what are the differences between all the four different type of data structures. What is a list, tuple, just I want to summarize. Look at this. List collection of items which are ordered. Ordered means by using the index, you can insert the elements in the order in which you are inserting the elements that can be retrieved in the same order. That is the meaning of ordering. Another one is mutable. Mutable means you can add the elements to the list and delete the elements, and you can modify the values of the list. Allows the duplicate members. You can have duplicate values in the list, and the rectangular braces you are using for that. Lists are like arrays. What is the difference between the list and array? Can anyone? It is also looks like an array, but one basic difference is there between lists and arrays. So before I complete this slide, if anybody knows the answer, you can post it in chat. This is about lists. Ordered, can be indexed, and mutable, can have the duplicate values. And coming to the tuples, tuples is ordered, but tuples are immutable. Immutable means you cannot perform the addition operation or deletion operation, but the braces you are using like this. See this. What is the difference between tuples and lists? Tuples are immutable, that means it cannot be changed, whereas lists are mutable. And tuples are faster than the list because they are immutable. Whenever you are going to perform either addition, subtraction, or modification, then the operations will be little bit slower. That is the reason tuples are faster when compared with the lists. Now coming to the sets. Just now we have seen unordered elements and unindexed sets are mutable. Okay, somebody are giving the answer. Array size is fixed and dynamically changed by the user. Lists can be changed by the user. Very good. That is one. Another important thing is also there. I tell you the answer. In the arrays, all the elements should be of the same type. You cannot have the different types of values in the arrays. But in the list, each and every element can be of the different type. In the list, you can have the 4 elements. The first one can be integer, the second one can be string, third one can be the float, and the fourth one can be the same type. The fourth element can be another list. I can simply say that the elements in the list are heterogeneous, whereas elements in the array are homogeneous. Okay. So coming to the sets are unordered. In which order it can be created, we do not know. And it is not faster than the lists, and they are represented by using the braces. When coming to the dictionaries, the elements are represented in the form of a key value pairs, and this is also unordered. Changed, you'll be able to modify the elements of the list, but they cannot be accessed by using the okay, they can be accessed by using the index, and you can use these curling braces. Now, most of the times you may be confusing like which data structure will be used for my purpose. The question itself have the answer. For my purpose means what you are going to do. Suppose you want to conduct a class to your classmates, but you want to restrict that class only to your classmates. In that case, no other person cannot be added. In that case, which one you can select? Tuples. Why? Because you can, once the tuple is created, you cannot add anything to that one. Are you understanding? Whenever you want to perform certain things, it will be fixed to the only some group of elements which you don't want to modify further. In that case, you can go with the tuples. Now, I want to take the presentation from the different students. I don't want to follow the roll number wise. I can pick any of the students randomly. In that case, I can go with the sets. Why? Because those are unordered. Now, I want to store the students along with their CGPAs. In that case, I can go with the dictionaries. I'll be taking the student number as a key and the corresponding CGPA as value. Right? Now I want to specify what are all the students registered for the courses. There you can have the duplicates. In that case, you can have lists. So depending upon the requirement, you have freedom to choose any of the data structures, right? So this is all about the different kinds of data structures in Python. So this is the last class in your Python courses. We have taken 5 classes in Python course. In the first class, uh, you have seen the different kinds of environment for creating and executing the Python programs. We have seen Python Jupyter Notebook, Python IDLE, and Python online compiler. And in the command prompt, we have seen the different kinds of environment. And there we have seen the how to declare the variables, how to perform the assigning the values to the variables, if statements and loops, break statement and continue statement in the day one. In day two, some of those things were explained practically by using some environment. In day three, you have discussed about functions, lambda functions, and lists. In day four, you are given with tuples and dictionaries. And today's day 5 and day 4, we have discussed about strings. In the yesterday's class, we have discussed about strings. And today's class, we have discussed about exception handling, sets, and the overview of all the data structures. These are all the things that are sufficient to understand if you are given with any Python code, right? By using this, you can improve your coding skills in Python. So this is all about the Python sessions, 5-day Python sessions. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. So somebody are asking how to open the Jupyter notebook. Okay. Uh, okay. So if it is already installed, you can directly go to the in search box. You can go to the Jupyter notebook. I think most of the people may have not used. There is one way of doing that. Directly, you can go with any browser, and in the Google, you can check like Jupyter Notebook Online. Look at this. Jupyter Notebook Online. And click, then see this one. First link itself, jupyternotebook.org try. Then click here. Then you click on this. And directly accessing the Jupyter Notebook from the browser. If you have internet connection, directly you can go like this. This is the Jupyter Notebook. Okay. If you want to have the cells, then file, go to the file, new notebook, Python 3. That's it. Now I can write programs, or I can copy programs here. Now, once you have written some thing, I'll show you what I have done. Suppose we have used some cells. Now you want to save this notebook. Afterwards, you want to open this, and again, if you want to execute the same programs, or if you want to show it to the somebody. Once you have created all these things, I'll show you this. Suppose this is the notebook I have created. I have executed some set of statements. Now, if you want to save this, what you can do is go to the file menu, and here download as, go to the notebook. IPynb means IPython notebook by default. IPython notebook. Now if you want to change, if you want to give the name for this, here itself I'm giving hello, and if you click rename, here the name will be changed. Hello exception. Look at this. This is the name changed. What I will do is go to the file, download IPython notebook. This is right. It will be downloaded here. Hello exception. Now it will be there in your system in downloads folder. Now if you want to open that, you can go with the Python open, and by default all of them will be stored here in your workspace. What is the name I have given? Hello Python, right? Hello exception. Look at this. This is the hello exception, and if I click on this, automatically the same file will be open to you. This is simple. Go to the browser and click on the Jupyter Notebook online. You have to give Jupyter Notebook online. Then you click on the first one, Python. Then you'll be getting this one. If you want to save, go to the file menu, download as IPynb, IPython notebook. And if you want, you can save it as normal Python file also, so that you can be executed in the normal IDLE prompt. Okay. And if you want to save this, rename, just now I have shown you, or here itself you can change the name. Here you can click here, change the name. And suppose you have created this one, you want to have the another copy of the same thing. Go to the file, make a copy. Means the same duplicate will be created here by having the same content. One you can store it, and one other one you can modify it, right? Did you understand? This is the way to use the Python notebook. So what is the difference between the Python IDLE and Jupyter Notebook? Python IDLE is which is used to simply execute programs. But here you are having a lot of features in Jupyter Notebook, and automatically indentation will be there. So many features are there. And there is one more thing, you can use this IPython notebooks in Google Cloud. Google Cloud, there is Google Colab Cloud is there, which can be used for your machine learning applications. There, whatever the Python, just now here what we have done, whatever the programs that you have written, everything that you have noted down in the form of a IPython notebook. And you can go to that cloud, you can take these IPython notebooks and you can execute there in the Google Cloud also. Jupyter Notebook is more convenient and many features are there. You can use these IPython notebooks directly to your Google Drive if you have GitHub account, and you can access this IPython notebook from the GitHub account. And it can be stored in your cloud also. But in ideally, it is only some environment that can be worked in your laptop. That's it. Jupyter Notebook is more flexible. What else? I'm giving you my mail ID. If you have any queries, you can drop a mail to me. Okay, so this is all about the basic things about Python. This is the beginning from which you can start walking and you can start running also. There is no limit for learning, and these are all the basic steps and syntaxes that you have already known. And by going through the different kinds of resources and online courses, you can learn Python and you can do some small projects also. Okay. This is from my side. If you have any doubts, you can drop me the mail. And if there are nothing to discuss, I'll close the session. Thank you.